All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay Johnson. I am a nurse practitioner and I'm the owner of Monarch Wellness in Mandeville, Louisiana. We are a health optimization program practice. We focus on metabolic health and weight loss, as well as hormone optimization for both men and women and gut health. Everything is done through a functional medicine lens, so a very unique practice here on the North Shore. So tonight we are going to talk about metabolic health and weight management. So tonight we're going to cover tracking metrics, calories and macros, small meal ideas, a daily meal matrix, your metabolic health, healthy body composition, sustainable fat loss, anti-inflammatory nutrition, mindful eating, and medical weight loss. So first up is tracking metrics. And when it comes to metabolic health and sustainable fat loss, what gets measured is going to get managed. But you want to make sure that you're measuring the right data. We're not going to track metrics to obsess over numbers, but we track that to uncover patterns, guide your decision making, and also evaluate how your body is responding over time. It's a very personalized program. So tracking is going to help us answer some questions like, is the protocol effective in improving your fat to lean mass ratio? Is your blood sugar and insulin levels becoming more stable? Do we have decreasing inflammation? And are symptoms like energy, sleep, and cravings improving? And so we're going to establish those baseline metrics at the start, and that's going to include your weight, waist circumference, body composition, lab markers, and your symptoms to create a meaningful foundation. And then we're going to reassess these metrics at regular intervals to gain real-time insight into what's working, what needs to be adjusted, and how to support your long-term success. And this approach is going to reduce frustration by replacing guesswork with clarity. It helps support individualized care and adjustments, and it helps you celebrate not only weight loss, but some non-scale victories and long-term progress. And our goal is not perfection at this practice. It is precision, personalization, and progress over time. So our second topic is calories, macronutrients, and micronutrients. So calories are not the whole story. We always hear calories in versus calories out, but that model is going to oversimplify a much more complex equation. This energy balance does matter, but what's even more important is how your body is going to process and respond to different foods. And there are different problems with calorie counting because those measurements are just estimates, they're not absolute. So those food labels can be off by about 20%. Also, your metabolic rate is not static. Stress, sleep, hormones, your age, and your muscle mass are all going to help change this. And it's also important to note that calories are not created equal. Foods can both have 300 calories, but one may have fiber and protein, and another can be full of sugar and refined fat. So what matters more than calories alone is going to be how nutrient dense your foods are. So foods that are rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Your macronutrient composition to get the right ratio of protein, fat, and carbs, mindful portions, and eating behaviors. And so we want to use calories as a reference, not necessarily a rule book. So those calorie calculators and apps can provide a starting point for you, but none are perfectly accurate. So trying a few reputable tools, you can average those recommendations and then use your body's feedback as your ultimate guide. How energized are you? Are you still hungry? Are you seeing some body composition changes? Because calories, again, are just one piece of your metabolic puzzle. They're not the whole picture. So first thing we're going to talk about is carbohydrates, which is one of our macronutrients. And carbs are going to be necessary for brain and muscle fuel. They also help with a healthy digestive system and cholesterol profile. So a suggested intake per day, it does shift depending on your calorie needs, but typically 1 to 2 servings of starch, unlimited non-starchy veggies, 1 to 2 servings of fruit, and 1 serving of sweets, and that's for each day. And when most people say they're cutting carbs, they really mean that they're cutting those refined starches and added sugars. They're not eliminating the entire carbohydrate group. And that distinction does matter. Refined carbs are going to be your processed grains, added sugars, and your ultra processed foods. Your nutrient dense carbs are whole grains, beans, lentils, vegetables, and fruits. So, if your goal is fat loss, you want to try to keep your added sugars to under 24 grams per day. You want to limit those refined starches like those white breads, pastas, and baked goods to just a few servings per week, and to keep your ultra processed foods below 10% of your total calories. And carbs are going to provide what other foods don't. So if you cut carbs too drastically, you can reduce your energy, mental clarity, fiber, your serotonin production, some key vitamins and electrolytes, hormone support, sleep quality, and disease fighting phytonutrients. And fiber is where that it is so important for your metabolic health, and you're going to get that from your plant-based carbohydrates. You can get a small amount in nuts and seeds, but mostly from carbs. So fiber is going to feed your gut microbes, it's going to balance your blood sugar, support regularity, and it also aids in fat metabolism. So if you cut carbs, you're also cutting fiber, and that's a big problem for your health. Next is proteins. Protein is going to be essential for preserving that lean muscle mass. It's going to maintain your metabolic rate, especially during weight loss. It creates a sense of fullness and it helps support hormone production, immune function, and tissue repair. So, most people are going to need about zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound of their body weight for protein daily. So, as an example, if you weigh 150 pounds, you want to try to get 90 to 120 grams of protein per day. And as your weight changes, those protein needs are going to change too. So make sure that you're recalculating these numbers regularly. And mixed foods are going to provide protein too. It does not just come from chicken and protein shakes. So you can get your protein from nuts and seeds, cheese and dairy, whole grains, as well as beans and lentils. And those mixed foods are going to contribute to that daily total. And they also offer some additional benefits like fiber, phytonutrients, and healthy fats. So we recommend to mix both plant and animal sources. Animal proteins are going to give you those complete amino acids for muscle maintenance. And then from plants, you're going to get that extra fiber and antioxidants. And together, we get that nutritional synergy that's going to support fat loss, energy, and long-term resilience. And finally, fats. These are essential, they're not optional. So, diet culture, especially in the 90s and 2000s, told us that fat is the enemy, and that is not true. They are a critical part of metabolic health and your long term weight regulation. They're going to help support your brain and nervous system, hormone production, the stability of your cell membranes, some absorption of vitamins, and it also provides long lasting energy and feeling full. So, fats to prioritize are going to be your omega 9s and your omega 3s. So, these are things like olive oil, avocado, some nuts and seeds, as well as salmon and walnuts. And some fats to eliminate, excuse me, to limit, not eliminate, are going to be omega 6s and saturated fats. So, this is going to be things like your seed oils, your corn, sunflower, and peanut oils, butter, cheese, and red meats. Again, just to limit, not eliminate. Water is also very important for your metabolism. This is not just a basic health tip, but a critical component of your metabolic function. So you want to aim for at least half of your body weight in ounces of fluid per day. And you want to add more if you're sweating during workouts, you're in a hot environment, or if you're consuming high fiber meals or supplements. Micronutrients are also going to be very important for your health. And it depends on what area of health you're looking to support. But if you're looking for energy, those B vitamins, for immune support, vitamin A, C, E, and zinc. For your bones, you need vitamin D, K, and calcium. For your metabolism and muscles, magnesium is helpful. Iron is going to be helpful for your blood. For your thyroid, selenium and iodine. And for a fluid balance, sodium and potassium. Our next section is the 5-part plate and small meal ideas. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating these things on every meal. So we have our greens, an additional color, protein, fat, and some extra fiber. And some bonuses to include as often as possible are going to be your crucifers, that's your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and arugula, some anti-inflammatory spices like cayenne, cumin, and cinnamon, ferments like yogurt and kimchi, and alliums like onions and chives. Our next section is the daily meal matrix and sample days. So this is a day of balanced meals, and you can see how colorful and nutritious these meals look. So we always recommend starting out with a healthy breakfast. You can begin your day with a good balance of some fiber-filled carbs like a whole grain toast or oatmeal. Include some high-quality protein from eggs or nut butter and some nourishing fats from avocado or nuts. And to avoid snacking all afternoon or feeling ravenous by dinner, you want to give your body and brain a satisfying lunch. So that includes those fiber-filled carbs, high-quality protein, and nourishing fats. And then a well-balanced snack is not only going to satisfy you, but it's going to help you avoid that crash that comes after some chips or a sugary coffee drink. So plain Greek yogurt is a great choice. It has a high protein and low sugar content. And then for dinner, a good tip is to try to fill your plate halfway with veggies, some green and some color. Add in some lean protein, some more fiber-filled carbs like quinoa or sweet potato, and then cook that all up in some anti-inflammatory fats. This is also a nice matrix that you can use just to choose one item from each box and then just add some of your favorites. So each meal you want to have that green, some extra color, protein, starch, a fat, and an anti-inflammatory spice if possible. Our next section is your metabolic health. So a lot of people think metabolism just means how fast they burn calories, but there is a lot more that goes into it. So your metabolism is the sum of all chemical reactions in your body that are going to sustain life. That metabolic rate is going to be the number of calories you burn daily, and that's going to support everything from the repair of your cells to breathing and digestion. And your muscle mass, hormones, sleep, stress, nutrition, that's all going to impact and influence your metabolism. So when we talk about metabolic health, we're referring to having optimal levels of five key markers without the need for medication. And those are going to include blood sugar, triglycerides, your HDL or good cholesterol, blood pressure, and waist circumference. So these are going to reflect how efficiently your body processes energy and maintains balance. So, metabolic syndrome is the silent epidemic. When you have three or more of those five key markers out of range, you get diagnosed with metabolic syndrome. And that is a condition that's going to drastically increase your risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cognitive decline. Only 12% of US adults are considered metabolically healthy, but 80% of metabolic dysfunction is going to be preventable with nutrition and lifestyle interventions. So that just goes to show you that your daily choices are going to either move you toward disease or resilience. So, some strategies for blood sugar stability, starting your meals with leafy greens, 20 plus grams of protein in each meal, eating every 3 to 4 hours without skipping meals, saving sweets for the end of a balanced meal, 30 grams of fiber daily, minimizing those sugary drinks and ultra processed foods, limiting alcohol, walking after meals, and trying to finish eating at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. And some tips for some optimal brain and metabolic health. That Mediterranean eating pattern is always recommended, cardiovascular exercise daily and strength training weekly, an active lifestyle, prioritizing good quality sleep, and developing some stress skills, limiting alcohol and smoking, making sure you're seeing your doctor once a year for lab work, and being consistent with any medications that are prescribed. It's also really important for brain health to make sure you're learning new information regularly and using it. Also, reading long stories with plot twists is helpful, and then just maintaining healthy and supportive social connections. Our next topic is principles of a healthy body composition. So it's important to note that not all fat is the same. Your body's going to store fat in different ways, and where that storage occurs does matter. We have some types of fat that are relatively harmless, but others are going to drive inflammation, insulin resistance, and chronic disease. So, subcutaneous fat is located just beneath the skin. That is typically what you can pinch. This is genetically influenced, but it is more common in certain areas depending on your sex and hormones. So, women, we're going to see this around the hips, thighs, and buttocks. Men, typically around the abdomen. This does function as insulation, an energy reserve, and a cushion for your organs and joints, but it can become problematic if it gets excessive. It can impair mobility, contribute to joint pain, and worsen insulin sensitivity. Visceral fat is going to be your most dangerous kind of fat. This is the one that is located deep within your abdominal cavity and it surrounds your internal organs. This is going to interfere with your organ function, drive systemic inflammation. It's linked to diseases like insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. And we can measure this using a waist to hip ratio. So you're going to divide your waist circumference by your hip circumference. If you're female, our target ratio is less than or equal to 0.85, and for men, it is less than or equal to 1.0. And some ways to reduce visceral fat are going to include minimizing refined carbs, sugar, and alcohol, increasing movement throughout the day, improving your sleep and stress. Ectopic fat is going to be stored within your organs. That's like your liver, heart, and even your muscles. This is driven by a sedentary lifestyle and excess calorie intake. This is mostly associated with that fatty liver disease, impaired insulin production, and some complications of cardiometabolic health. So people can have a normal body weight, but they can accumulate that ectopic fat and it becomes a hidden driver of metabolic illness. Brown fat is going to be your good fat. So that's going to be found in your neck, collarbones, chest, and around your spine. It helps burn calories to generate heat. It also contains more mitochondria than white fat and can help improve insulin sensitivity and your metabolic rate. So cold exposure and exercise can activate brown fat, and that's one of the principles behind cryotherapy. So the big picture is that fat is not just about appearance. It is an active endocrine organ that's going to communicate with your brain, immune system, and metabolism. So the location, type, and function of your fat tissue are going to be key to understanding your body's long-term health trajectory. And in our weight loss program, we do focus on reducing harmful fat types, not just looking at the scale. It's important to note that healthy weight is not the same as a healthy metabolism. So you can have a normal BMI, but excess visceral fat. You can also have low body weight, but poor metabolic markers. So true health is going to be about good blood pressure, blood sugar control, a good lipid profile, and a body composition. It is not just what your scale says. So some tips for minimizing that visceral fat is to include cardiovascular exercise daily and strength training weekly, making sure you're consuming high quality protein, limiting some of those metabolic saboteurs. So that is your sugar, saturated fat, ultra processed foods, and alcohol. Prioritizing sleep and making sure that you have some tools to regulate your stress. Our next topic is the art of sustainable fat loss. So thin does not always equal healthy. So while weight loss can support your metabolic health, you can also reach your ideal weight and still be metabolically unhealthy. And this will happen if you still have elevated visceral fat, your muscle mass is too low, or we see out of range numbers for blood pressure, blood sugar, or cholesterol. So health is more defined by your internal function, not just your external appearance. And so behavior-based goals are going to lead to better outcomes. So people who focus on health promoting behaviors, nutrition quality, movement consistency, and sleep and stress regulation are going to have greater long-term fat loss and improved metabolic health. And that also is going to come with less frustration and burnout. So we want to let your habits drive your progress, not just a number on a scale. And it's important to note that real fat loss does take time, and that is a good thing. So, safe, sustainable fat loss is about a pound per week. It's not a quick fix, but it is a lasting one. With rapid weight loss, that's often accompanied by muscle loss, hormonal dysregulation, and weight regain. And that weight cycling or yo-yoing can actually be more harmful than maintaining a slightly higher stable weight. We also want to mention that even if your progress looks small, it does matter. So losing just 5 to 10% of your total body weight is going to have significant improvements for your insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, inflammatory markers, as well as your liver enzymes and lipid profiles. These improvements are going to lower your risk of chronic disease. Weight loss and fat loss plateaus are going to be normal as well. So, as you lose fat, your body actually interprets that as a threat to survival and it's going to begin to conserve energy. So, that's going to lead to a lowered metabolic rate, an increase in your hunger hormones, and a decrease in your satiety hormones. So, that leads to greater fat storage efficiency. So, yes, your body gets better at holding on to fat. It's not a failure on your part, it's just basic physiology. So, how to handle a plateau without giving up? It's important to note that most are going to resolve within a few weeks, but you need to stay consistent. So, try to shift your mindset. Realize that plateaus aren't a problem, they're just part of the process, and your body's simply adapting to a new normal. So, just focus on maintaining during the phase. You want to prioritize nutrient quality, movement, and sleep, and avoid panic dieting or extreme restriction because that can backfire on you. Another thing that affects your metabolism is sleep. It is often the overlooked pillar of metabolic health. So there's not a single system in your body that sleep does not affect, and there's no such thing as optimal metabolic health without adequate sleep. But it is one of the most under prioritized behaviors. So it matters because a lack of quality sleep is going to increase your hunger hormones, it's going to suppress your satiety hormone, it increases your cravings and appetite, promotes insulin resistance, prevents muscle repair, keeps your cortisol elevated, and encourages late night snacking. So, sleep is not optional, it is foundational. We want to aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night. You want to try to protect that circadian rhythm by aligning your sleep with those natural light dark cycles if possible. And treat your sleep as an active part of your fat loss and metabolic strategy, not a passive afterthought. Because if you're not sleeping well, your metabolism cannot fully recover, regulate, or respond, no matter how clean your diet is or how consistent you are with your workouts. Stress is also going to affect your weight loss. It does not just affect your mood, but rewires your metabolism, behavior, and your ability to make changes. So, a stressed brain is going to focus on survival, not self improvement. And that can derail even the most well intentioned efforts to eat well, move more, or stay consistent. So, habit change is going to require brain power and repetition. So, your brain can absolutely form new habits, but that process of rewiring is going to require thousands of repetitions, focused attention, and a sense of safety and stability. So, chronic stress is going to interrupt that process, which makes habit formation feel a lot harder than it actually is. Cortisol is a stress hormone that is going to shape our physiology, and that is going to be elevated with ongoing stress, especially with sleep deprivation as well. So, elevated cortisol increases your appetite and cravings, makes your fat storage go to your belly, decreases your muscle mass, elevates your blood pressure, and suppresses your immune and reproductive function. So, even if your nutrition is on point, unaddressed stress can keep your body in a state of metabolic resistance. So, our next topic is anti-inflammatory nutrition. So, what is inflammation and when does it become a problem? It's important to note that inflammation is not inherently bad. It's a vital part of your body's defense and repair systems. Inflammation helps heal a cut, mend a broken bone, fight off an infection. But when that inflammation becomes chronic, it's going to shift from protective to harmful. So, chronic inflammation is going to occur when your immune system remains in a constant state of activation, and that's going to trigger damage instead of repair. That's linked to diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, depression, Alzheimer's, cancer, even asthma and allergies. And some contributors to this include stress, poor sleep, ultra processed foods, sedentary lifestyle, environmental toxins, and chronic infection. So, food is your first line of defense against inflammation. Movement, sleep, and stress are going to be essential to regulate, but nutrition is one of the most direct and powerful tools you have to reduce inflammation. You want to focus on diets that are rich in colorful fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes and leafy greens, omega-3 rich fats, and herbs and spices, because these are all going to be associated with lower levels of inflammatory markers and they're going to reduce your risk of chronic disease. And one way we can do this is with the Mediterranean approach. There's not a single best diet for anyone, but this philosophy is consistently regarded as the most health promoting and disease fighting. One of the best things about this approach is that it's not a set of rules, it's not a plan. You don't have to count calories or even measure your macros. It's just about including foods that are bursting with nutrients. You don't even have to restrict foods that are purely pleasurable. It's all about balance. So everybody wants that special unicorn diet that's going to fix everything, but that just doesn't exist. The key to longevity is common sense and a complete approach to your wellness that you're going to be able to sustain long term. So, some documented benefits of the Mediterranean approach are lower blood pressure, better heart health and blood sugar control, slower cognitive decline, reduced inflammation, reduced risk of cancer, and a reduced incidence of depression, anxiety, and mood disorder. Your gut is also going to be very important when it comes to your metabolism because it is more than just digestion. So this is a 30-foot tube. It's responsible for far more than breaking down food. It's also going to help with nutrient absorption, hormone production, immune system regulation, detox, and it also communicates with your brain. So a healthy gut is going to equal a healthier metabolism, mood, and immune response. So some simple ways to support gut health. You do not need extreme protocols or parasite cleanses to nourish your gut. You just want to focus on some daily habits. That's going to promote that diversity of your microbiome. So, fiber, prebiotics, probiotics, some optional supplements that can be helpful include collagen and L-glutamine. And just remember that you're not just feeding yourself, you're feeding those microbes. Next section is Mindful Eating 101. So, mindful eating is an approach to nourishment that's rooted in awareness, not restriction. It's not about dieting or trying to lose weight. Those outcomes can naturally follow when you begin to trust and listen to your body, though. So, mindful eating is about reconnecting with food as a source of satisfaction, noticing what your body truly needs by tuning into those hunger and fullness cues, making intentional choices, and allowing for satisfaction without guilt. This is going to encourage awareness of emotional versus physical hunger. It allows permission to eat without regret, helps you respect your body's fullness and satiety cues. And it also allows for flexibility because no 2 days are going to look the same. So that goal is just going to be self-trust, not self-control. When you eat mindfully, you're going to be more likely to reduce compulsive eating. You're going to have greater satisfaction from your food. You can break patterns of shame and rigidity and choose meals that support both your body and mind. And our last topic is what is medical weight loss? So GLP-1 and GIP medications are going to be a class of hormone-based therapies that were originally developed to treat type 2 diabetes, but they are now widely used for weight loss and metabolic support. So they work by mimicking or enhancing the effects of two naturally occurring gut hormones, GLP-1 and GIP. These hormones are secreted by your gut in response to food, and they do play a crucial role in regulating not only appetite, but digestion, your insulin response, and energy balance. So, how do these medications support weight loss? First, they regulate your appetite. They're going to act on receptors in your brain to signal fullness and reduce those hunger cues. So, that's going to help reduce cravings, emotional eating, and portion sizes. It also slows your gastric emptying. So, how quickly your stomach empties food into the intestines. And that's going to promote a longer lasting feeling of fullness, which will reduce your calorie intake. You're going to feel satisfied sooner and stay full longer. They also help with blood sugar and insulin regulation. So they help balance blood sugar by stimulating your insulin when glucose levels rise. They also suppress glucagon, and that's going to prevent unnecessary glucose release from the liver. It also is important to note that more stable blood sugar is going to equate to fewer energy crashes, fewer cravings, and better fat burning capacity. They're also going to support energy expenditure. We've got some evidence coming out that shows that this receptor activation, sorry about that. The receptor activation may increase thermogenesis and raise your resting energy expenditure. So that's going to make it easier to burn calories and preserve lean muscle. They also are going to rebalance your satiety hormones. So, some other key hormones that are involved in weight and appetite regulation, like leptin, peptide YY, and ghrelin, are also going to be affected. So, that result is a more balanced hormonal environment for healthy weight regulation. So the bottom line is that these medications are not magic. They don't do the work for you, but they're going to create a more supportive internal environment, and it's going to help make behavior change and sustainable fat loss more achievable. They're going to reduce the physiological drive to overeat, improve your blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity, help you support better food choices and portion control, and help reset your metabolic processes that have been disrupted over time. These medications are going to be most effective when you pair them with a program that focuses on nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress strategies that are going to support long-term change. So if you're ready to lose the weight for good this time, we do offer a metabolic reset program for our patients. All of our patients do come in for an initial consultation that includes visits with me to go through advanced lab work. And so we are offering $100 off that initial consultation with code webinar through the end of October. So make sure to take advantage of that offer before it ends. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Next week, we will be focusing on men's health. So if you have a husband, father, son that you think would benefit from some more information on that, make sure to have them tune in. Have a great night.